Call to order. Twice. Just hear us out. I'll call the roll. Member Worthing?
Here.
Member Sandifer?
Here.
Member Guy?
Here.
Member Capelli is not here. Vice Chair Shaw? Here. Chair Olmsted Bowen? Here. Okay, roll has been called. Okay, can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready, begin. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Do you have a report for us?
Yes, I will make a short verbal report. As you know, your bylaws requires that there is an independent audit for Measure R every fiscal year. And of course, for the fiscal year that ended June 30, 2019, that audit report is being finished, should certainly be done before December 31st. The auditors will be here to your January meeting to present you a report of that audit. As you know, there wasn't much of any transaction that took place last fiscal year, but in the spirit of what is required by the resolution and bylaws, they will fulfill that obligation and provide you a report. The only other thing I'd like to report to you is now we have a full quarter revenue for the first fiscal quarter of fiscal year 2019-2020 for Measure R. That means 3 months. Receive revenue for the month of July, month of August, and month of September. And the total receipt for those 3 months total $1,456,000. $435.75. Don't know why they pay us the cents, but they do.
That's fine.
But what that means is certainly at this point we are running ahead of our budget on Measure R revenues. But again, it's too early to draw any definite conclusion based on this, but the numbers are looking good. That's all I have.
That's about $1 million over if you multiply it by 4. Original projections.
For the whole year, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, could be, yeah.
So, that's great. Okay, so can we approve the minutes of the October 23rd, 2019 meeting?
I have an item I have to discuss. That would be on page 2 regarding the contract for trail maintenance. There's a statement, the contract was approved on a calendar year starting in November 2019 through December 2020. I think that instead of a calendar year, it should be on a year-by-year basis. Because above that says, we hope to have the trails upgraded within 1 year, although a 3-year contract was approved. And since the contract was approved on a calendar year, so I'm confused about the word. So I would recommend a calendar year being replaced by year basis, starting in November.
Well, actually, that's not correct. It is a 3-year contract. The funding will be approved on a year-by-year basis, but the contract itself is a 3-year contract. The funding source and the amount will be determined on a year-by-year basis.
I think what he's talking about is that November to December is not a calendar or fiscal year.
Well, that also, but I was just confused because it says 3-year contract, and the contract was approved on a calendar year.
Well, as opposed to fiscal year.
Yeah, it's a common term. We either say a fiscal year or calendar year. In this case, the contract is intended to be calendar year. There's an extra 2 months because we did it, but it's intended to be a calendar year contract overall.
Okay.
We just wanted to get it started quicker rather than waiting till January.
Okay.
But that was the intent, to say it was a calendar year contract, but the funding is allocated on an annual basis.
Which means it'll come before you each time.
Yeah, each time.
Right, okay. All right, thank you.
So it'll be part of your budget recommendations, so even though the contract, so we're gonna budget it on a fiscal year, even though it's a calendar year contract, correct?
But Chad and I have talked about how we might rectify that because we like that contract to correspond to our
Right.
fiscal year.
Right.
So we're looking at
Yeah, and we may end
potential way
up,
of rectifying
maybe
this.
after the first year all the rehab's done, we might wait 6 months and do no work so that it gets back to July, and then we start it then. So basically we would do all the rehab, get it completed maybe hopefully by next January, or December, excuse me, and then we might say, let's put a pause on it for 6 months, and then we'll re-engage the contract on a fiscal year basis at that point.
Any other amendments?
No.
Can I have a motion?
I move that we accept the minutes of the October 23, 2019 meeting.
Second. Okay, and we'll vote. Member Waring?
Aye.
Member Sandifer?
Aye.
Member Gregg? Vice Chair Shaw? Aye. Chair Olmstead Bowen?
I got to read.
Motion passes unanimous.
Okay, now, we get a report from Brian.
Yeah, actually, Chad and I will give you an update tonight. This is Measure R. At this time of year, we felt it'd be prudent to give you an update of where we started, although we did start at the beginning of the fiscal year, started a little later, and every time we got it through and approved. And then that gave us the authorization, by the time we went to council, to move forward with the start of our Measure R infrastructure program. So let me start off with some of the projects that have been approved. The City Hall Sheriff Substation improvements, which is a security improvement for City Hall. The budget was $495. Part of the funding is through our successor agency, our prior successor agency, $291,000, and Measure R, $204,000. Phase one includes the updating of security in the Sheriff Station and City Hall. And I should say that adding security to City Hall, it doesn't have any. The Sheriff Substation has, and that's actually replacing everything that they have, down to their, all the way to their CAT, upgraded to CAT 5 and CAT 6, and that's in their facility. Assessment is completed and reviewed by all departments with the security consulting group, Family Security. Site drawings for interior exterior elevations is complete and has been reviewed by the departments, and particularly the Sheriff's Department. The final project review and modifications is scheduled for 12/8 through January 6th by all departments. That means I need their final feedback. IT department has met with standing representatives and Vigilon security visual technical support. That is actual the visual cameras and the system that provides us everything to ensure the archive requirements are met, the VPN processing and Wi-Fi capabilities are met. So there's a whole IT side of this that has to take place with this upgrade, and that is that has been reviewed by our IT department, as well as the server that all that information will be put on. And then the Sheriff's Department has certain requirements for us to make sure that our archiving can be done with their video, particularly when they're doing their video interviews and that type of thing. The proposal from Stanley, I'm sorry, just to add to that, we've also, as part of the IT review, we are moving, as you know, one of our problems was our armory, logistics room, and IT was all in the same room. It's not a good mix for what that function of that room. So we're creating a new IT room. We just had contractors out to quote us the prices for those improvements. So once I have that, then we're moving right down the line. We'll be submitting plans to building safety for
that particular room and that additional room within their footprint to move the IT equipment. A lot of the IT equipment we have is from the county, so they have to come in and relocate it to that room. That would free up the armory room and the logistics room to be what it was meant to be. The proposal from Standard Security be ready to go, City Council for approval. Now I have on here February 15th, and you can strike that. It's actually January 15th. February 15th isn't a City Council meeting, it's actually February 19th. So that's my error. So we're ready to go forward with to the City Council to award the final phases of instituting that. Work is expected to start towards the end of February. Could be a little sooner, some of it, but by February we believe we should have most of our pre-ordered products in and they'll start work. Phase 2 is preliminary assessment completed with departments for architectural scope of work for counter intrusion and restriction. RFP for design completed. Architectural firm GMID will provide. We worked with GMID before on City Hall and the Sheriff's Department. They're a good firm and they have a lot of our data already, so it's a lot cheaper to work through them and their architectural firm for preparation of our working drawings. Design work expected to start January 2020 with construction begin in April 2020. One of the issues that we have, particularly when we look at the counter intrusion or restriction, is the level of what we want there. And we've had everything from bulletproof glass to just restrictions to get over a counter. So that's why we're working with the departments on accessibility, because it changes the dollar amount tremendously. And particularly on our counters, those ceiling heights are much higher than other locations. And how high you go is really an issue. And then there's a certain amount of structure. So, and since we have a police officer available, the ballistics, and I learned a lot more about this than I ever knew, but the issue is ballistics. So you can have bulletproof glass, and it's the issue of how much ballistics you want to be able to tolerate. Well, when we started looking at that, the other problem is the counters. The counters are not ballistic proof. So are you reinforcing the counters? So we've gotten into a lot of the weeds here, but it's good to have that discussion. And then how do we make it still friendly to the customers? And do we really need that level of intrusion or restriction? And so that's part of the discussion we're working with the architect through to bring back to the council some samples of concepts that they can then decide, because each of them have a dollar figure difference. And that dollar figure difference could drive us to come back to you and ask for more money. So anyway, that's why we're doing this as a separate phase. Meanwhile, the cameras, all of the other infrastructure needed, our panic hardware stuff, as well as all of the backup materials and stuff, we're moving forward with all of that, which also includes what we call a smart card entry points, which allows you not to enter into certain portions without having the proper credentials. And so that's all part of that phase 1. And by the way, the Sheriff's Department has looked at this also for us from their security detail too. So we did a review as well what their recommendations would be and what we should look at. And we'll continue to work with their group on that as well.
Is the sheriff recommending a high ballistic level since almost all mass shootings are rifles?
No, not. That came from more of group discussions and that type of thing. And then when we got into the level of ballistics, you go from here to here, and then double pane, and it all of a sudden it really changed the game there. And then the issue was the architect came through and says, well, okay, that's fine, but what if your counters are very tall, so the counters are not ballistic at all. And so that made a real change. And when we really get down to it, what is the fear, what is the problem? The issue is that they really don't want people getting over the counter and not be able to jump. Because we're Norco, and that, look, if you look at our counters, a lot of people don't realize that we have boot rails on the counters. Now they look really cool, but they're also a jumping step for anyone. So we're trying to work with the staff as well and get sheriff's feedback, because I think sheriff has a different opinion on that and response time. The one thing about we learned in the design phase, the visual on camera system, which really does some really neat things. It has the ability to even send us warnings if we enter the data. If you have someone who is potentially a problem, it will actually send a warning to certain desks that that person has entered into City Hall or has entered the parking lot. So it has that capability. So that it's sophisticated in that sense, but it's only good as data in, data out. So.
How do they identify them, with a license plate or facial
You could do that as well. It has that ability as well. It actually will, when a vehicle moves into the parking lot, it actually frames down the vehicle to the license plate and has that capability. It also it has the capability in the next module to actually do facial recognitions and data type stuff. We're not in that module. In the future it may be, but it's a trend that everyone is going to. So as we expand some of our security systems to the city, that's been discussions particularly at the event center, where we have the ability to have cameras scan and be looking for certain things. So the technology is there and it's getting better and better. We're not quite there for this, but we do have some particular applications that the Sheriff's Department like. One of the changes we made in a couple of their cameras is, one, these cameras have the ability to really take a shot but zoom in. Unbelievable from what we have right now. But it also has the cat eye type cameras in certain sections that we will use. And that gives them a whole different perspective, which is what the sheriffs want. So,
Brian, you know what the odds are of an armed intrusion occurring in a city department?
no, I don't have real data on that. And I guess it's an interesting stat. I could probably look that up, but I really don't know. But I imagine that it is a vulnerability. One of the sites we looked at, Sid Hemet had done actually ballistics and other stuff. The problem with that, it was awkward for staff. It was awkward from the public standpoint. It became very intrusive, meaning this, from a customer service standpoint, they actually removed it. Spent the money and then removed that section. They changed some stuff on their counters, and everybody likes it much better.
Yeah, because in hospital emergency rooms, we went through that about 20 years ago, where there were a couple of armed incidences, and so all the emergency rooms started putting up, bulletproof glass and speakers when somebody walked up to register, and it got to be so daunting to patients coming in. We had so many complaints. I know Corona, we finally took that down.
And part of our review, and with the reason why the architect's on board, is to really provide what is it that you really want and need. The issue is that connectivity to the customer. We don't want to lose that. And so when you interview and you talk to staff, we have some staff who are very pushed away. We have some who go, no, I have to have that interaction. We're sharing information. So we have to find that nice medium. So that's really why that's part of it. I separated that because I don't need that to do what I need to do the other. I just need to, that's part of phase 2, which we hope to be able to do, and by April, at least start, have gone out to bid, or at least are prepared to go out to bid for that type of work. We're going to need to do something. But the level of something is really the key. And and that's going to have to be an education for all of us as well as our council too, because sometimes it's easy just to say, okay, so I'd like to have this stop a cannon. Well, okay, if that comes back at $1.5 million, is that really what you really need to spend that on? And what does that do between the relationship from the counter to the customer? So that's real important for us too.
I think they're going to find what hospitals have found, that there's no interaction, and no matter what bulletproof level you put up there, if the person behind it believes that nothing's going to come through and it does, then the city's on the hook for you have no bulletproof glass, how come I was killed?
Right, yeah. And or if it's not tall enough, throw something over it. I mean, we had all of those discussions as well. One of the connections that the security side on the first phase does is we do put panic buttons in. So as opposed to, we don't have any. The problem right now in trying to have a button that pushes to go to the sheriff's department, we can't guarantee the sheriffs are sitting back there to see it.
Right. Do they have to respond?
That's because our deputies are in the field. Now they're coming back and doing reports, but they're back and forth. So that doesn't really give you, it's a false sense of
Security.
Yeah. And so one of the things we did is in the discussions in our review was to put the panic buttons in. Now, in our discussions, because Dana has had some experience with this as well, is that if you hit that, remember that is being dispatched, that there is a major problem, whatever, and that's code 3, so they're running here, just as if it was a bank robbery. So that's what's happening.
Well, at City I worked at, they actually, if you push the panic button, the police would call someone at a desk behind to find out if it was really meant to be. Because sometimes, you know, your knee could hit it.
Yeah,
so there's different other things
right.
you can do.
The new ones actually, you either have to pull a pin, push it, or it has a cap that you have to
Yeah,
lift
ours
up.
was just a literal button.
Yeah,
that you push.
so-
Ours
Like a
was
doorbell.
It was
Yeah.
like came out of a grenade.
But also, I mean, and I know you've taken this into, I mean, you have different departments like planning where you have to put stuff out, you know.
Yeah.
And some cities separate finance, would put more secure stuff in, you know, there's all kinds of stuff.
So
you
that
can
was
do.
one of the elements, and that's
I'm
a
sure
great.
you've looked at that.
So it's a great thing you said that is because one of the elements was to secure the cashier up front, where the people over in planning go, no, we're passing big stuff and little stuff, and we don't want someone to jump over. So the difference may be different along there, and also some of what was being thought about originally changes is a structural issue too, whether we can provide that. So those are all why I decided to split this apart. Let's get this stuff done, and that will help tremendously. The other thing in the camera systems that are being installed will allow us to actually monitor that from specific managers, has the ability to, from a small screen on their computer, pick up and sort through stuff. So we have that ability. And so working with human resources as well, we're looking at also some particular code comments that codes can be, because we have a whole intercom system here. So that was one of the things is to work with the employees on certain color codes and stuff that mean certain things. From, you know, we need to go grab the AED and run over to this counter or whatever, but have that kind of a process as well. And it is a different world, so we have to think a little differently than we used to. The next project is our AC unit swamp coolers. We are getting the process on the update of our swamp coolers. This is for Roddy Jim. Those quotes we should have in mid-January, and then we'll start that work in February. I separated that from the HAV system. We have a proposal from engineering firm, mechanical engineering, prepared the scope of work and drawings for City Hall HAV system to meet all Title 24 requirements. In fact, I had a review meeting with the engineer today, necessary to go out to bid for those AC units at City Hall and Sheriff Station. The first time we looked at this, there were some issues regarding the proposal, so we re-looked at the AC actual scope of work in real detail today. So it's going to change my actual engineering cost, reduce it significantly. This project is expected to be bid by March of 2020, maybe sooner if I have the plans here. Based on my discussions today, I might have plans in February to bid this thing. So that means that by the time I bid it, award it, we could be done possibly with the project by end of April. This one is Citywide Road Project, 8055. We've invited bids for advertising starting December 17th. Mandatory pre-bid walk through schedules January 15th, with pre-bid meetings set for January 28th. On this, since we spec Garland Roofing materials, Garland Roofing, the manufacturer, we went through the CMAS schedule. That's through the state of California, which guarantees us best price. So what we do on that is we actually purchase the materials ahead of time. That purchase has gone to City Council. They've approved that award. So materials and PO has been issued for that. We are now waiting for the contractor labor side of that. And I split that part because if I do it the other way, I'm going to get a markup. I actually save money by doing this. It's a little more work, but we're pretty good at using the CMAS schedule in this type of function. This project is set to begin at the end of February 2020. Project time frame is 120 days. Our parking lot, Scout House, Riley Gym, 295, 625. Survey and topo completed, that's 100%. Design 90% completed on Riley Gym, and that includes the ADA improvements we needed to make there. Design is 10% complete at Scout House, and if we didn't hit the holidays, I'd probably be almost done that. That's a smaller design phase, so we'll probably be done around the 1st of February. We estimate to bid this early February and award a contract and schedule work no later than March of 2020.
I don't remember the Scout House doing.
Yeah, community center and Scout House. The Scout House is bad as well. If we go back, I defined it a little bit because what it says is, it says the Riley Gymnasium and Community Center, and then on there I think I have in parentheses Scout House ID or whatever. So, but the Scout House is in pretty bad shape. So, and if you've been in any of the council meetings, we've had some of the scouts that show up to say, you guys need to do something for this. So anyway, the Scout House is listed as part of that project. This one is the ADA assessment citywide. The RFP has been completed. I'm having the city engineer review it and the building official look at it to make sure that we have met all Title 22 compliances for the RFP. And then that RFP is to be scheduled to be released in January of this year, upcoming year. And award of professional services should be by February. And project evaluation, the transition plan will take at least 6 months through that whole process. And by the way, that requires actually at the very end a public hearing to adopt that transition plan. So that's where we are right now. Santa Ana River Trail, we have 20% design complete. Staff expects design to be completed, engineering drawings by March of 2020. So somewhere in February, I should be at 70%. When I get to that point, then I'm going to start meeting with the stakeholders that I have. So I have our trail groups, I have my commission, I have Streets and Trails Commission. And then I'll meet with those subcommittees, and then I have some stakeholders from the community standpoint, as well as I want to meet with JCSD. One of the issues I need to meet with JCSD is that we need to then develop an MOU because we're transitioning from their side to our side, their side to our side, and I need to make sure that it stays informative of the Santa Ana River Trail Master Plan. The MOU between all of the agencies calls out for certain things. So this MOU will really deal with, we'll maintain it from here to here, you'll maintain it from here to here. And the issues of liability are acceptable for both parties, depending on where that situation is. So that's part of the stuff that we need to work with JCSD on, because this trail actually transitions onto their trails. And further downriver, they're expanding the trail connection to make their final connection to the bridge. When that is complete, then we should be able to have a full circle of trail connection.
Okay, so it's going from the Hamner Bridge, right?
Well, this actually in this phase is the causeway underneath Hamner, okay?
So
it connects over by Silver Lakes, sweeps around towards the levee, and then over the levee. So you can come up out of the river, connect trail all the way around, and then underneath through the causeway. The county, or I should say the project for the bridge, which will actually have both pedestrian and equestrian crossing on it. The county parks is paying for the section that will come off of there to connect down to the causeway. It's a separate part of that project when that happens. So if you were coming in, one of the other phases to this that we've talked with the commission about is that we have to connect from where the bridge transfers from Old Hamner, because that's where the trail goes, from Detroit to Old Hamner, then to the pedestrian crossing that will be on the bridge. So they've identified that location, and the county has. But we're going to have, that's another phase that we'll have to come back to look at improving as we go.
So you're gonna come off east and go underneath the river?
Yes. What this will do
underneath
is
the
allow
bridge.
you to come over the dike, go through the dike on a trail, soft shoulder trail, connect into the causeway, which is locked right now, through the causeway, go down the berm that is on the west side of Hammer, connect into the JCSD park, which then they have an equestrian, pedestrian, and bicycle trail right there. And allows you, if you're pedestrian, it allows you to have a step, handicap ramp to come up over the berm on the other side, on the west side, and you can walk through there as well. And then we will have, in the MOU, we'll also discuss opening and closing. What time does it need to be open? What time does it need to be closed? Because we don't want vagrants making that their home underneath the bridge or causeway there. The other part of this project, which is, I think where you were going, Susan, is that the Hamner Bridge, when it's done, will actually have an access off of it at the end going towards Citrus. It swings around down towards the causeway. So you will be able to ride down that as well, come around and swing in. So if you're not riverbound and you're coming down one of our trails, then you would come through that way, whether you're a pedestrian or a pedestrian. Bicycle trail is not really applicable into the river anyway, so that's really going to be more pedestrian or equestrian. Now, the phase that we have to connect from is Detroit and that section, where we're over by Alhambra, that from there down to Old Detroit, Old Hammer. We still need to make that connection into the river, and that's another section that we'll be bringing back. We don't have design on that. We're looking at a grant to assist us in that. So that's kind of our additional phases. The other future phase for the whole trail connection is that the trail connects into Community Center Park, connects around and drops into the back of the park and ends up on Cedar, so that you never have to use the light at 6th Street or Norco Drive and Hammer. And the question is, it's always so busy there. So you go through the park and you'll be on a soft shoulder equestrian trail, or I should say a bridle trail. And then we would also have connection through there. The bicycle trail around there is a class 2, so it's class 3. So it goes around the park. But the equestrians or pedestrians can walk through there to the back of the park, end up on Cedar. Now there's some issues for right-of-way at Cedar that we're going to have to clean up. But then that connects you down on Norco Drive, and then the trail is on the other side. So you have a full connection then from where we are existing as right now. Right now on Corridon, which becomes Norco Drive, that's considered a class 2 trail for bicycles. And that connects up to Cedar, where transition is into a class 3. The difference is the delineation. A class 1 is delineated as it has an actual fixed fixture separating it from the road on the trail. Class 2 is striping, and a class 3 is more of a signage. So, all right.
Thank you.
Trail maintenance citywide, I'll turn that over to Chuck. Any other questions from everybody? That's our update, so we'll bring more back to you as we keep going.
I have one. It's exciting to see that our funds, Measure Our Funds, are starting to be used for some improvements. But I want to bring up a topic that was brought up at our last meeting, and that's about signage to let the public and citizens of Norco know that Measure Our Funds are being used for this project.
Great, Alan, great thing. I
City
think
clerk is going to get
Dana
it.
just went to go bring you one. So Chad's been doing trails around town, and the contractor has these signs and he posts them out there.
He
And it actually, so you can see one right
We're
there.
gonna-
Susan's seen one.
Okay.
So these are that
okay.
have been.
We just got these, so these are now being used. So let Chad talk a little bit about all of our projects. We're using sort of the same format, so when we do the roof project, the difference will be that'll look like kind of like a 4x8 sign out in front, and that will be, this is a Measure Our improvement, etc. So that will be at anywhere we're doing a project.
Did we approve these expenditures?
General fund.
Where is it coming from? Yeah. But anyways, in addition to these signs, we are also working on recording some short videos, which will be done by staff and maybe city council members or maybe
Even you
some
guys.
members of the.
That would be on the city website?
Yes, that will be sent out.
The objective there is to maybe do a quick interview talking about where these funds are being spent and show the project and show the progress. So kind of a hard hat type thing. So that's something that we really would like to see done. So. Kale, you're up.
It's my turn.
Okay, buddy.
Yeah, his time. Yeah.
He took all my material. So trail maintenance citywide, the budget was $500,000. The contractor has begun rehabilitating trails in around the city and is using the city's work order system to document all work. Again, we did work with our outreach team to develop those signs, so they're now using them out there. They place them along with the trail closed signs that they have to put down when they're working, but they also place those out on each side of the project, so they understand that this is being funded by Measure R. So that's now being used by that contractor. He knows he's supposed to use them. So if anything happens to them, they get damaged or stolen, tell us right away so we can get more. The idea is to do the similar type of thing for any type of project. Some of the actual capital projects, like street work, stuff like that, will have more permanent signs on posts for those, so they'll be a little bit different. Obviously, these need to be mobile and moved every day. So we're very aware that we need to and should advertise the work that's being done, how it's being funded, so people understand that this is one of those projects. So, but that is definitely being used to date. Trail fencing, again, there's two sources of funding. Measure R money was $100,000. The total trail fund was $150,000. That's an error. So it should be $250,000 all funding. The contract for trail fencing installation has already been awarded. We've already met with the contractor. They're intending to start that project sometime probably by the end of January, because right now we're actually going ahead of the contractor, physically removing all the wooden fence that exists. We're going to go through it and work actually with the trail maintenance contractor, and they're going to regrade and clean up those trails while it's empty and cleared, so we get everything done and not coming back later on. So we're
What
trying to.
streets is on?
I don't have them with me. They're multiple streets. We have a bunch. I think there's 12 different streets we're going to be working on. And there could be more depending on how much we actually lay down linear footage. We may end up doing less streets because it turned out there was more linear footage than we estimated. There could be more streets done because there's more linear footage available. But I didn't bring that list with me today. But it is a list that we provided to you before to review, and that we ultimately gave to council for their approval. So we do anticipate they're going to probably start physically put stuff sometime in January. Right now we're just going ahead of them and taking all the wooden fence out. And they're going to regrade those trails, kind of clean them up before they come in. So once they're done, it's really everything's finished.
What are you doing with all the wood fencing?
Depending on what it is, most of it we throw away. It's a lot of it's pretty haggard. Some of it we'll keep. Usually it's the rails we'll keep because the posts, they're usually pretty much shot. But it really depends on a case-by-case basis, and they evaluate it. If it's any good, they keep it, and if it's not, they throw it away.
If you're on a street that they're not going to redo the fences, right? Can we get rails from you?
Can the public get rails from us? No.
No.
Yeah, we can't give rails to anyone in the public because it's a gift of public funds.
Okay.
But again, the idea is to reuse those rails for other areas, to fill in maybe some wooden fencing where a rail's fallen down, it's broken. We come back commonly, we'll give that stuff to Bill Daly and his guys and their team, and they'll do a little pet project where they put some fencing in. So, we try to use it where we can. But our goal right now is really just start catching up with the vinyl and replace the wood.
Okay.
So it'll be not an issue in the future. Then we have our pavement projects. We have two that we're doing in Measure R. One was Valley View between 3rd and 4th. The second one is River Road between Sundance and Bluff. Both projects are currently in design. I'm anticipating probably go out to bid for River Road probably sometime in February when it's warmer or whatnot, and then likely construction would be in May or April because we want to get warmer temperatures. Valley View probably won't get constructed this year, mainly because that was one that was going to have to wait till after the storm drain goes in on that section, and that still hasn't finished yet design, and that has to go in first. So at this point, I would project the storm drain, if we get the project out, will maybe be done or at least be in the process of construction by June, which means we wouldn't get the actual construction on the street until next fiscal year.
Was
But the design
Valley
will be
View in
done.
our schedule? I don't ever remember seeing Valley View in the Measure R schedule. I remember seeing on the city's budget.
No, it wasn't Measure R.
Was it?
Yeah, that'll be.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm
So-
gonna have to bring my papers out again.
Yeah, it's a pretty bad road in that section.
Oh, no, I know. I
But we
don't
want to
think
get
it's-
the storm drain done first. It's just
Maybe that's why I didn't remember.
design's taking a little while because we made some modifications. We're trying to capture as much water as we can.
That part.
So it's taking a little bit longer, which will push that construction out, so which then pushes this construction out. So, but in the end, it's a good sequence of events where we ensure we're not tearing up a road right after we do work. So, I hope is early in the next fiscal year, this will already be started, because the design will be well and done. It's just a matter of waiting until the storm drain gets finished.
Is there going to be any widening on River Road?
No widening at this point, because there's no development occurring in the section, which is basically the north side of the street. There's no planned development this time that would necessitate the widening that would normally be done if a development occurred. The goal is to widen that section that's undeveloped, but until a project goes forth,
So it's when
it's just a
the
matter of
project gets approved?
yeah. Then they would do that improvement
That's
to add the
every
other lane.
morning
Yeah,
and every evening, it's
it's a
a gridlock
Yep.
there.
yeah. So our issue there is just there's a lot of potholes and they keep repairing and claims that occur. So we just want to get it fixed because we really have no potential project that is realistically going to happen soon. Otherwise, we would hold off on it and try to keep doing patch repairs. But at this point, it's just we really want to get it done. I think that's it. Any other questions?
I have a question, this may be kind of a petty issue, but I find out the hard way. Are the rails presently in posts pressure treated? And if they're thrown away, is there an environmental issue that may come back and bite the city because of disposing of hazardous waste?
No, they're not like ours are not. The posts we have aren't treated with like
They're not.
any type of oil or material on them. It's not an issue for them.
Okay.
Any other questions I can help you with? All right, appreciate your time.
Okay. So we're going into public comments.
We need a motion to.
Oh, I'm sorry. We need a motion to receive and file the reports.
Make a motion to receive and file the report.
Second.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay. Member Wareham,
Aye.
Member Sanford,
Aye.
Member Guy,
Aye.
Vice Chair Shaw,
Aye.
Chair Olmsted Bowen.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes unanimous.
And now we're going to go into public comments. This is the time when persons in the audience wishing to address the Measure R Committee,
What is this?
Measure R Citizens Oversight Committee.
What was just discussed? You could speak for your public comment on that. We just closed that item.
Oh, so, I thought that was public comments for things that are not on the agenda.
It'd be, okay, within our purview. Okay.
Okay. This is the time when persons in the audience wishing to address the Measure R Citizens Oversight Committee regarding matters not on the agenda may speak. Please complete the speaker card in the back of the room and present it to the city clerk so that you may be recognized. The Ralph M. Brown Act limits the committee's ability to respond to comments on non-agendized matters at this time. The committee shall not discuss or take action relative to any general public comment. So, do we have any cards?
Yes, we do. Jim Potter.
Well, Merry Christmas and thank you for a wonderful year of putting this project, all this together, and I commend you and my neighbors also. My comment is I kind of going to Brian too with Parks and Recreation is the Kipps Corner Park. The monument sign has been missing for several years. It was wood and has been deteriorated. And removed, so there's no monument sign indicating the park. Also at that park is, we don't have any picnic tables. Originally, when they built the park, put it in 40-something years ago, we had picnic tables and they've never been replaced, but there's pads there for it. I've lived here over 40 years and the park system has been very well used by the citizens of the community. Even though we have large yards, the park system is well received. And just a little thing with the Scout House parking, it's off a cedar and it's also shared with baseball fields there. And it's in dire need of repavement and striping. And so thank you very much and Happy New Year to you all. Thanks for your work.
Teresa Edwards.
Hi again. I only want to mention one small thing. First, I want to thank Brian for his help with our Heritage Room, having the furnace inspected and the gas situation over there being taken care of, plus the roof inspection. I really appreciate that. Since you guys were talking about AC units and swamp coolers and stuff tonight, I just thought I'd mention our space at Heritage Room. We don't know what the condition of the AC is in there. It's been working so far, but I believe that there's some. Somebody said that there was a line leaking in the roof, and it was creating a bubbling, and the popcorn ceiling was chipping off and everything. So while we're talking about ACs and things that are coming up like that, maybe we could look at that, look at the AC unit at the Heritage Room, and also in the future, before it gets hot, we want to talk about climate control in there, because we do have archival historical materials in there, and to do it properly, you have to have climate control, and you can't let the humidity and stuff get to the items. And then the like I said, the roof, when we do the citywide roof projects, then I believe there was in order for Circle City Roofing or somebody to check our roof, and I didn't know what the status of that was yet. So before we get into too many big rains and all that, I would like to know the status of the roof on the Heritage Room.
I can talk to Teresa afterwards.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. There's no further speaker cards.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 4, items for future measure our Citizens Oversight Committee's agendas. So first of all, we're going to have our auditors. That's one of our agenda items for January.
That's correct.
Okay. And also, are we going to get additional projects to look at for the mid-year budget? Are you that far into it, or when does that happen?
You know, there's a project Chad and I are exploring. If the information is ready, we can bring it back to you in January for consideration. Okay. Ideally, we like to have any recommendations from the Measure R committee that is going to be incorporated into the city budget to be done ahead of the city media budget,
right.
Which is going to take place in February. So, that would be an appropriate time to bring it to you.
We may have another project, which is the lighting project, that we will maybe bring back if I have the data back from what on one of our areas of concern for safety. So, but I don't know if I'll have all my data yet for that. So then if that is, I'll bring it to you.
Any other items that?
The only thing would be is if my bids come in a little different on a project, then we would bring that back to you if there's any adjustments needed there. So.
Okay, perfect.
Are you going to bring back the information on what they're gonna do with the cabinets or with the counters?
Oh, yeah, once we get design, I'll let you know, and I'll let you know what that plan is going to be.
I'm just curious what the plan is.
We're not there yet, but when it does, we'll bring that back as
Okay.
part of our phase 2 update.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Okay, I guess it's time to adjourn the meeting at 6:47 or 6, or depending on which clock we use.
6:52.
6:52.